Welcome back, Keepers of the Flame. Okay, so let's break down a little bit of what I covered a crap ton of yesterday in a fast way, so you guys can kind of start to grasp the pattern that flows through that and how it implements and how you can spot it in different areas, because it's not just the binding of a regale system. So let's start off with, I think I covered pretty good about binding spells yesterday and what they're for and what their purpose is. So it's to keep someone, well, okay, so the original saying was, they might have even covered this in the movie The Craft, but the original chant is like, may you I bind you against doing harm against yourself and harm against another. So that's the point of it. But the problem is these particular setups were not designed for that meaning in mind. They were designed for a very specific control mechanism purpose. And you can kind of see that throughout this. I could spend hours trying to just explain this. So when we're talking about logos and language and whatnot, we started off, this was written in, I believe, originally Hebrew, but was actually spoken in Arabic. And so that translation got lost. And then we changed from Hebrew to Greek, and then to Latin, and then eventually to English. So all of these things got so far lost in translation. It's kind of devastating. And you'll see throughout the progression of language and logos that things just got drawn out and longer and longer and longer and longer. A really good mechanism to look at this through is, for those of us who are like, gosh, it takes so long to say what we need to say, blah, 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 blah. Why don't we have words that just mean blah, 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 blah? Look at the Chinese language. 3,000 characters. And you have to memorize tone of voice. That's a freaking lot. That's a lot. So it's going to take them even longer to learn how to communicate with each other. Do you see what the purpose of that is? Do you see the design of it? Do you see how toxic that is? Do you see how it prevents people from getting even to that level of basic human communication, which we need to survive? Well, at least we used to. So now we're being kind of forced inside. Hence why we're coming to the light and figuring all this out. So that's part of the issue when you're coming to a binding spell. Okay. So the logos is now extremely corrupt when you're dealing with even speaking. When you speak, you spell. When you write, you spell. When you think, you spell. When you feel, you spell. Okay. So when that's going to trigger a lot of people. Oh, well, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what I know about communicating frequency, energy, and vibrations via multiple different things. So what is the binding spell's purpose when it comes to, now we're getting into the white coat territory. So let's break that down. What's the undercurrent there? What's going on with that binding spell? Because you have a lot of indoctrinated people with a lot of time, resources, and energy put into studying their craft without a whole lot to show for it other than the third leading cause of death in one case, and then you get the agriculture scientists who are like, oh, we need to manipulate our food and the stuff we put in our bodies because bananas. So when Gwen, Miss Stefani, was talking about this shit is bananas, I don't think a lot of us caught the message right away, but I did later on in life when I heard that argument. I'm like, we have IBS and celiacs. People are starting to not be able to eat food at all. And there's another reason for that, but we'll get into that later. And that's their argument. That's how they teach you in a very expensive indoctrination camp, is to argue bananas. I don't feel like I even need to speak to that. I'm just gonna let that dust settle. Just gonna let it settle. Okay, so back to not poisoning our food system. Our animals also eat the poison food, which means we ingest it through the animals. What about the water systems that our FDA and whatnot has allowed to be polluted? What about the prescriptions that everybody's taking right now that are not filtered out of our water system? Oh, you didn't know that when you poop and pee, it goes back into a filtration system and then it comes through the faucet that you drink out of and cook food with and clean food with? Oh, didn't know that. Now you do. Okay. So when people are like on chemotherapy or taking birth control, that's in your drinking water now. That's in the water you prepare your food with. So, binding spells happen on more than just a religious process. When you spend that much time, effort, and energy and resources getting yourself into debt, do you think you're gonna want to step out of that system after all that time and energy spent learning how to conduct yourself within those paradigms? No. You need to pay off that student loan, so you're going to take the first job you can possibly get and like start paying off those student loans. And hey, those petroleum-based products peddle their stuff right in your face and be like, if you just hand this script out, that'd be great. And we'll make sure that you can get that student loan paid off, and we'll get you a boat, a yacht, a really nice car in the process. That's how it works. So when we get people that are telling us that we have to take procedures or telling us we have to take a medicine because someone who's been heavily indoctrinated says so, we are allowed to ask questions. That's basic science. We should be allowed to study the data and analyze it with a logical brain. Okay, something that takes 5 to 10 years to get through a very scientific, specific system shouldn't all of a sudden take 18 months. Okay, so, and when it comes with a label of possible heart complications, I don't think it should have to be rocket science to figure out that if this gets complicated, the whole show is probably going to end. This can get, but you start effing with that, game over. No? So I think we can toss that one up. to possible heart complications is Nazi white coat speak for a slight case of death. Now, for those that have a undercurrent of suicidal tendencies, that's okay. We can't judge that. At this point in time, we can't blame them. But what does suicide come with eventually when it's not dealt with, when it's not sat with, when the shadow work is not performed? What does it turn into? Homicide. Hence why a lot of people got irate and upset when everyone wouldn't do the same. Join our death cult or we're going to get really mad. So this is why we need to start seeing through these tactics and maneuvers and whatnot. And we need to start understanding that we don't need to get upset about it, but we need to hold our own. Okay? Yeah, I mean, you can get upset. You can totally get upset. It's totally justifiable to get upset because when you do all the work and you do the hard work and you sit with it, and it is agonizing, it's terrifying, it's horrific. It really just, it shatters you repeatedly, and then you got to pick up the blasted shards in a very painful way and cut yourself in the process and put them back together. So anger and upsettedness is there to instruct us that yes, our boundaries are being tested and someone is trying to tell us that we have to do something with ourselves that we don't want to do with ourselves. Someone is inflicting their wants, needs, whatever, desires upon us, and we're not willing to fulfill that, but they're trying to shame and blame and terrorize us into conforming into something that they feel they have a right to do when they don't. So if you need to get a procedure, you go get a procedure. If you feel that getting procedure is not good for you, then don't do it. Everybody has that right to choose, and that's where the calmness comes in. We allow people to choose for themselves what they think is best for them. And we do not criticize one way or another. We hold our own. We hold our own sovereignty, okay? So it's okay to be upset, though. It's still okay to be upset. You just take that intense energy and harness it into, I see you, I hear you, but here I stand, and I have a right to do what's best for me just as much as you have a right to do what's best for you. Okay. And yeah, I know the upsettedness comes when they try, to inflict different things on different people for various reasons. I get it. I totally get it. I'm not saying you don't have a right to be upset. You do. You have every right. But again, that leads back into a binding spell because the laws are binding. And a lot of people have theorized that the laws are very coinciding with the regale systems, the religions, the binding spells of the spirit to the whatever law of the land is. So wherever you happen to live, whichever religion is the majority is directly tied to the law of the land. How can we judge that? How can we trigger warning? So when the vast majority of, say, rapes and pedophilia, let's just go with those, like I mentioned yesterday, women and children, we don't really have too much protection around those people. We like to think we do. It's a nice thought and it's a nice gesture, and we are trying. I get it. I'm not discounting anybody who's trying to bring someone to justice. We're trying, but we aren't even close to being where we need to be on that aspect of things. Okay. And I think we saw that play out with the Jeffrey Ghislaine case. And yeah, I know how to pronounce her name, but her name is Ghislaine. So, and make no mistake, Make no mistake, women are some of the worst perpetrators and the facilitators and the let it sliders. So if you've watched Promising Young Woman, she very much highlights that. Women are very much facilitating of this type of behavior. And that's toxic yin, that's toxic feminine. So now that we've kind of tried to piece together a little bit of how that continues to play out in society as a whole, and how I'm trying to give you a little bit of a further up backwards picture from how it's not just in the Regale system. Okay, now keeping in mind that people have the right to do what they need to do with their life force energy. It's not for anyone to come and say, you can't do that, please stop. Informed consent. Informed consent, informed consent, informed consent. That's it, that's all. That's all we need to start doing. Okay, we don't need to go full camp on this, if you know what I mean. We don't need to do that. That's unnecessary. Okay, we have a history that we can learn from here. We have a full-fledged, drawn-out history of what we can learn from. Okay, so we don't need to step into that space. We can see where we severely just went way off the rails in the past and say, okay, if that's what you need to do with your vital life force energy, that's okay. You can do that. But now you understand what it's all about. Okay? Binding spells are black magic, by the way. That would be classified as black magic. Okay, we don't need to be afraid of that. We need to come to an understanding of it. Again, if you are fearful of anything, where's the deck? If you're scared of anything, it will have power over you. Fear is power. And all you have to do is investigate it. That's how you get your power. Well, you can't fucking read that. H.P. Lovecraft. Read a lot of his stuff when I was a little kid. Not a little kid. Well, okay. Grade school, I suppose. Ugh. So, because I was into it. I like it. Scorpio, 12 house stellium. Heck yeah. So when you have a fear of something else outside of you coming in, it's just unfiltered emotions. It's unprocessed thoughts, feelings, emotions, situations that you found yourself in that you have not dealt with. Nothing outside of you can hurt you unless you're hurting yourself from the inside first. This is the whole purpose of light and dark. Seen, unseen. Can't see it, can you? No, don't know what it is. Well, you know what it is. It's my hand. But say maybe it's a tentacle. You can't see it. Okay? So coming to the understanding that just because it's unseen or unknown about doesn't mean you can't look into it and get right with it. Okay? So what do I mean by that? Trigger warning. This is not a weak constituted channel. If that is your gig, I highly recommend you go find someone else. No weak constitutions in this, at least this particular video. This is the Empress in this deck. This is H.P. Lovecraft. Crap, I looked at Chitulu. Chithulu. Oh, crap. Hang on. Chithaluhu deck by H.P. Lovecraft. Okay. That's the Empress. Okay. I love the Hermit. I still love the Hermit. He's just standing in his own bed, being like, I wonder how hot it needs to get before I meet them. Okay. Pardon my dark humor. Anyway, so it's just a coming to an understanding of it. Because if we can't look at things for what they are, and we turn a blind eye to it and pretend like it doesn't exist and like we can't focus on it, it will consume us. Your passive positivity will come to a screeching halt and you will be in this thing called hell. if you don't look at it and sit with it and understand it. You cannot have light without the dark. It's not possible. You would never know what light really is if you didn't have the darkness. And you would never know what darkness is if you didn't have the light. They have to be integrated. This is part of this is the part of the Red Seas coming back together. How about that? Okay. Done. So light and dark need to be assessed for full integration. So if you're fearful of anything, look into it. Get knowledgeable about it. If you're scared of getting a medical procedure, look into it. See what you can do for yourself. Talk to your practitioner about what is going on. Ask questions. Ask the important questions. Okay? Ask the stupid questions. You have every right to know. It's your body. Okay? Okay, integration. Positive, negative. So this kind of feeds into the light and dark. If you have a negative connotation attached to something, then it will have a negative outcome in your life. So this goes with just testing. So when you're... Okay. Let's go. Say you want to do like, you want to drink some tea that helps with your kidneys and liver, kind of cleanse a little bit, a little like daily detox, whatever you want to call it. Those are going to be some bitter herbs. Those are going to be really bitter. Would you call that negative? Because it's helping. It's helping. It's helping. So understanding that when there's integration, there's more healing happening. So if you see something as negative, explore it, expand your knowledge of it. You don't have to accept it, but you do need to understand the reason why it's there, how it exists, what its function is, and the modality that it needs to fulfill in this ecosystem. That's the travesty of it. When we demonize and dismiss anything, we are demonizing and dismissing parts of ourself. If we are uncomfortable with parts of ourself, we will sit eventually in that very physical dis-ease because we did not sit with it on a spiritual level. So, okay. There's a hierarchy of laws. Common law, man's law, the law of nature, which is above man's law. Then you have the law of the universe, and then you have spiritual law. Man's law, regales. Spiritual law, nothing to do with the regale. Because when you're in a binding spell, your vital life force energy is no longer yours. You've given it away. Just like you do when you walk into a doctor's office and just tell your doctor whatever you want. Do what you need to do, and you don't ask any questions, and you don't get a say in your own treatment. It's no different. When you do not have possession of your vital life force energy, your flame, whatever you want to call it, your spirit, your divine spark, whatever. If you do not have possession of that, the universe will remind you to take it back. Okay, so this goes with toxic people coming in, toxic energy, toxic patterns, whatever it is that you see as harmful, just needs to be dealt with on the inside. And that's going to trigger a lot of people because on a very conscious level, no one goes out into the world and says, gee, I really hope bad things happen to me today. Nobody says that. Everybody goes out into the world and says, hey, I hope I have a great day. This is going to be amazing. And maybe some of us say, I really hope I spread some love and light today. I hope I leave things better than what I found them. Whatever it is that you tell yourself when you go out into the world. But on a subconscious level, there might be some patterns that are playing out, and you will see them right in front of your face. They will play out in front of your face. You know what I did once? I'll tell you a story. I did this little drive out in the country, and I even drove to a different state. And I got lost in the woods, and then I was realizing I was getting pretty low on gas. So I needed to find some place. So I stopped at this thing that had like a Amoco sign on it. There was no gas there. And it was not a good place to be. It was like a rally place for not healthy people. And I was like, well, this is what my energy attracts right now. I better find a gas station and get home and do some work. It's not that like we need to tell ourselves that we're bad people because we're attracting bad things. That's not it. It's the universe extending a hand going, hey, you're gonna need to deal with this lest it has control over your life and makes you go through hell. That's all it is. It's just an invitation for growth and expansion and understanding. No, you didn't ask for it on a conscious level, but the universe is saying, hey, you shut those down and out, those negative emotions, because toxic positivity, whatever it is. Can I please introduce you to an opportunity where you are forcibly going to have to deal with those emotions? So instead of getting, eyeball deep in that situation, dip your toe in the pool and be like, oh, going to go do some work now. It's not personal. You just need to do the work to get back to a place of emotional stability and independence, rather than feeling helpless and hopeless against those things that you have stuffed down and that are now showing up in a very toxic way in your environment. You don't need to feel bad about it. You can just deal with it one little nugget at a time. That's it. That's all. We're at 27. Okay. Feminine, masculine. Again, these things cannot operate separate from one another. They can't. That's why integration is such an important thing. That is why fusing the hemispheres of the brain, or fusing the masculine and feminine, the positive, the negative, and the dark and the light, into something that is cohesive and brings about more love and positivity into your life, rather than going back to the trauma bonds that are conducted. Because what is written in the binding books, and what oftentimes when things go wrong at the medical place, is you're dependent on them for help. But when they don't help you and they actually hurt you, that creates a trauma bond, because you can't go anywhere else for help. Because either your insurance won't cover it or whatever the heck the deal is, right? So there's alternatives out there, but insurance won't cover it. Cute, huh? So integration is going to help you come to a more healthy modality of living, a healthier way of thinking about the world, and a healthier way of understanding the world and all of the fractals and facets in the ecosystem that are necessary for a whole world to function. Because you're part of the world. So if you can function in a way that you understand that this is a vast ecosystem that needs to have space held for it, and an understanding that each and every single part of this ecosystem has a meaning and has a function, and it is to be honored and not abused. That is That's going to bring you so much further than anything else could. And this is an internal journey. I can't offer you a hand and take you there. This is a very individualistic. You need to find what fills your cup, face your own fears, and understand that if you can deal with those on a real, honest level, then when you see it coming at you, you'll be like, okay, I know what that is. I don't need to go near it anymore. And oftentimes those things just fall away. They just stop coming in. They stop being temptation. They stop pulling you. They stop nagging on you. They don't really linger in the back of your head any longer. It's a modality of existing, a constant integration. Why is that in your head? Why do I have this constant and persistent thought? Do I need to write about it? What do I need to understand about this? Take everything full circle, because that anger that shows up when you get frustrated and irritated because somebody is violating your person just is signifying to you you need to sit with it longer. You need to think about it more and come to the deepest understanding, where the only thing that you want to bring to the situation is love, not more trauma. Love and understanding. I see you. You're a part of the ecosystem. It is a fractal that has to exist for those who need it to exist. And then you can move on. Okay. And then that's not going to affect you as much anymore. And it might, this is a constant process of understanding and bringing everything full circle. It's a constant process. It's never going to end. It's never going to end. There's going to be something that irritates you, that makes you upset, that angers you, and you're going to have to sit with it. That's just the process of life. And you're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh, that's it. I've done enough shadow work. I'm enlightened. That's not how that works at all. There's cycles of the season that you go through. Okay? I love you. We're running on empty. So speaking of seasons and cycles, heirloom seeds. When you buy seeds this year to plant your garden, buy heirloom. You can smash them into the soil and they'll come back next year. Okay, I love you. And until next time, keep your flame.